Hello, everyone. Welcome back or welcome to Pop Cult X, your go-to. Yeah, sure, why not? Your go-to for all things pop culture from a Gen X point of view. My name is Daniel, and along with Gabe, we're here every week to talk pop culture items with you. This is episode 74 for those keeping count. 74, wow. We're almost to 100. Crazy. Yeah, that's pretty crazy if you think about it. I mean, you do one a week, that's pretty good. So we appreciate everyone out there listening and watching and hopefully enjoying the show. It makes us want to keep coming back and doing it again and again.
Yeah.
Now, we will be continuing in this episode our part 2 of LatinXcellence. But that's before we get into that. There, of course, we always like to talk about what's relevant in pop culture and what's like the hot, trendy topics right now. And I don't think anything could be hotter or spicier, I think, than Gabe's first topic. Maybe a little tastier, maybe a little dietary regime, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, so that's a great intro, but or lead in. But right now, everyone is talking about Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story on Netflix, that is brought onto the screen, the small screen, by Ryan Murphy, who does all the American Horror Story stuff. He's done like some real life, like crime
stuff. Yeah,
Versace, O.J. Simpson trials. So it's to start off with, it's an amazing cast. They have Evan Peters playing Jeffrey Dahmer. Niecy Nash plays Glenda Cleveland, who I'm going to get into that character. I was really surprised to see Molly Ringwald. She plays Jeffrey Dahmer's stepmother, and then Richard Jenkins plays his father, Lionel Dahmer, and Penelope Ann Miller, who's a really prolific actress. You probably would recognize her from some of the other stuff she's done, plays his mom, Joyce Dahmer. Really great cast again. So to begin with, let me say that I'm not someone who watches a lot of like serial killer type of stuff. Like that's not really my thing. I think I have like a casual person's knowledge of serial killer, like the pop culture. You know, I know who Charles Manson was, or Jeffrey Dahmer. Who's Gacy. Someone else? John Wayne Gacy. Yeah. So I mean, I kind of know, but I don't know like everything about their lives. I'm not like super into that sort of murder, serial killer type stuff. But the thing about Jeffrey Dahmer that I think that is obviously the sensational part of it is that he ate his victims, or a portion of them. He tried to keep, he kept their skulls. So it's like a really horrific serial killer. It's not just someone who just like killed a whole bunch of people. Yeah. Like it's insane. But the controversy is, do we need another serial killer, movie or another telling of their life? Like, are we, romanticizing or glamorizing them? They were a horrible person. But do we have to like go through all of that again? Do we have to victimize the families of the victims? Those are all valid, I think, points. I tend to think that no, we don't really need another Jeffrey Dahmer anything. I know why people are interested in it, but it's not something that's like required. Like as far as pop culture, we don't really need to see any additional things about serial killers. However, this series sort of tells more about the lives of the victims and of the families, and especially about the real hero of the situation is Niecy Nash's character, whose name is Glenda Cleveland. So for those who aren't really familiar with Jeffrey Dahmer's, life and the horror of it, at one point he gets a young man, a 14-year-old boy, actually, to come to his apartment that was in a predominantly all Black neighborhood. And so his neighbors had been complaining about the smell, about, activities going on. Well, this particular young person was drugged, and had a hole drilled into his head and had like battery acid or some sort of drug, put into his brain to create a zombie. Gross, horrific details. Like, I don't really want to go more into it, but he escaped. He got out of Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. got into the street where the daughter and niece of Miss Glenda Cleveland saw him. Glenda Cleveland called the police. And now this is the part that's really, really sad and horrific. The police show up, see this young man. Jeffrey Dahmer comes along and says, hey, this is my boyfriend. He's just drunk. Mind you, he's naked, bloody, and can barely speak. They allow Jeffrey Dahmer to take this boy back into his apartment where he kills him. Glenda Cleveland is persistent. She's calling the cops, checking on him, saying like, how could you do that? He was a young boy. He wasn't an adult. You let him go with this guy. And just like, she could see the situation for what it was. Eventually, she sees in the paper that the boy's missing. She's like, you need to go look into this. They ignore her. So it speaks to, the privilege of a white person being in a really sketchy ass situation and cops believing him. It speaks to how, people of color, specifically Black people, are often ignored by the police officers or by police. And how, they just turn their backs on this young kid who was also a person of color. He was Asian, and there was a bit of like homophobia in it, because part of the reason that they didn't really want to get involved in the situation is because Jeffrey Dahmer was like, oh, this is, my boyfriend, we're gay. This is like what we do. I handcuffed him because of some gay stuff. And the cops were like, whatever, just take him. So right now, a lot of people online are discussing, the political aspect of it, like the horrific, fact that the police could have prevented a lot more people from dying, a lot of Black, young men from dying, because here they had a victim that they could have saved. They turned their back on him. They allowed Jeffrey Dahmer to kill him and then didn't investigate him. They went, apparently they went into his apartment, could smell like the death, but didn't identify it as something that was worth pursuing more. And so the good thing about this retelling of the story is that they do focus on the impact of these murders have on the families of the victims, on the lives of the victims. They go into more depth into one particular young man, and they show his life and what his dreams and what his aspirations were, and how it was all cut short by his running into this monster. And it also goes into the trauma that Glenda Cleveland faced, because she saw this happening and then was later confronted with the truth that, yes, that guy was murdered. That young boy was murdered. Mm-hmm. She had to have that on her conscience that, she did her best and no one can fault her for that. But, could she have done more, and how traumatic that was for her? She is now deceased. I think she died of a heart attack or something to that effect. But, that's what kind of the show got right, I think, is that they focus on the victims and the family, and they sort of show how they were impacted. However, part of the things that people are really upset about is that the families of the victims are saying, we don't want another story about Jeffrey Dahmer. They're not getting paid, so they're getting re-victimized and not benefiting from this popular show that's now out. So it creates a question of, like, when something horrific like this happens, who has the right to tell the stories of these victims and make a profit off of it? Because this isn't a news story. This is like a dramatization of what happened. And Netflix is going to make money off of it. Ryan Murphy is going to make money off of it. And yet again, the families of these victims are traumatized again. I doubt they're watching it, but they have to see it in pop culture again. And they're not getting money. Not that the money would make a difference, but someone is profiting off of their loss,
pain and suffering. Yeah,
their pain and suffering. So it's the acting is really good. Evan Peters does an amazing job of being Jeffrey Dahmer, but it's kind of like one of those things that a lot of people are regretting having watched it due to the horrific nature of what happened. And a lot of people are not watching it. It is very popular, and of course, they're the people that are drawn to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That are like fans of the serial
Mm-hmm.
killer, which is just really gross. I would sort of present that to you and to our audience of, what are your thoughts of the stories of serial killers being told? Like, is there, are we going to do a John Wayne Gacy movie now, or are we going to see another retelling of some other serial killer? Netflix has announced that they're releasing the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes, which are like interviews with him. So they're like going even further into this realm. And so what are your thoughts? I mean, I know that you haven't watched it. Have you specifically not watched it because you don't want to spend time with that topic matter, or?
Yeah, I mean, so they did I think it was last year or a year before, the Ted Bundy tapes, right? So they made the movie with Zac Efron as Ted Bundy, and I watched that one because I wasn't really familiar with that case of Ted Bundy at all, and it was what it was, but the Jeffrey Dahmer case, I remember when it first played out. I think it was in 91, 92, that around that time frame. And I remember hearing about it through the news and everything. And I was just disgusted by the whole concept of eating your victims and whatnot. I mean, but I don't really want to relive that. And that's me from being an outsider, completely removed from the story. I can imagine what those families of those victims must be going through to have to see their loved one's story now being again in the spotlight. Mm-hmm. So I've made the decision not to watch it, just based on that and based on what you said, glamorizing serial killers. A lot of reasons serial killers do what they do. One, they're screwed up in the head. Obviously, they're perverse, but they want to get their notoriety, right? So why continue to every 30 years or so bring them back up? Why not just let them float off into the ether and let them float away so we don't have to remember their existence? I know it's like, if you don't know history, you're doomed to repeat it. But I think this is one history we can just let go. And maybe if people seek it out, they can find that, it's there. People, like you said, who enjoy this sort of macabre storytelling, not even storytelling, but just macabre recounting of the events. They can find it if they want to. I think it's something Netflix must know what they're doing because they've done it multiple times with this type of stories. So they must see that the market for it is there and people want to watch it. And people like me who won't watch it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that this isn't the last that we're going to see within pop culture of this show. I think that I kind of predict that Evan Peters and Niecy Nash are probably going to get for sure nominated for an Emmy. Mm-hmm. I think Niecy Nash will probably win. Evan Peters, I think, has a really great chance of winning. They did a really great job with their acting. And I don't, as an actor, I don't, as they are actors, I don't fault them for taking a role.
Neither do I. Yeah.
Arc, and, they did their job. So, we can applaud them for doing a really great job with their work. But, is this going to motivate other filmmakers, other creators in going down that route and making more movies? Certainly they thought they were being more responsible with the retelling of this story. But in American Horror Story Hotel, Ryan Murphy had serial killers in that movie or that show, and he had Richard Ramirez in it. And I almost question if if he went down the responsible route or a little bit more responsible route with Jeffrey Dahmer is because of the way he made Richard Ramirez look like a rock star in American Horror Story. Like, they literally made him look cool, like he was attractive. If you have seen Richard Ramirez, he's probably the most horrific, ugly person I've ever seen. He looks like a demon. Like looks the way his outside matches the inside. Let's put it that way. Okay. So, and they definitely went out of their way to not make him look like that. So, and I think that he actually appears in another American Horror Story, the one that was like the 80s camp thing. And I stopped watching it because I thought, that serial killer was real and he had real victims. and people that are still alive that remember being fearful, like sleeping in with their locked windows and locked doors and being really terrified about, possibly being a victim of this horrible man. And I don't know, like, it just, if you want to have that horror, that's scary, like, make another Nightmare on Elm Street, make another Jason movie. Those victims aren't real. We could argue about how, that's maybe that's a sick and perverse that we even like those type of movies, which would probably be a conversation for another day. But movies aren't hurting real people. They're not re-victimizing people again that have to live with the repercussions of the actions of these crazy people. So that's where I kind of stand. I watched it. There were definitely moments that were really gross, were hard to get through. I wanted to see it through because I knew it was going to be a hot topic, that people were going to be discussing it, and I wanted to see how they were going to handle the whole situation. They did better, but I don't think they did as good as they could have. I think that one of the things they could have done is, paid these families and involved them and shown more of the life that those people, their victims had, and how it was cut short, and how it impacted them, and focus on them. I know that people don't really want to, because that's not the quote entertaining part. Is seeing the victims, but maybe we don't need to be entertained by this type of stuff. So
let me ask you this. So if it was, you said they're releasing the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes, right? So it's gonna be more documentary style. So I know there's probably been documentaries about him made before, but had this version been told more like a documentary and not a dramatization, would that have made a difference in the way you view it? Because I think for me, maybe as a documentary, I would have been more, not sympathetic, but more inclined to watch it, because it is just telling of the truth. This is what happened. They're documenting what the facts, right? As opposed to reenacting or dramatizing it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's important for people to remember that when you see a dramatization, there are choices that are being made to make you feel a certain way, whether it's sympathetic to the serial killer or sympathetic to the victims.
Right.
They're adding, or they're withholding things from the story. They're changing things in the plot. They're presenting it to you in a way that they want you to see things. So it's not fact. Documentaries are the same in the sense that they are documenting sort of the truth, but they're withholding certain things.
Yeah, that's true.
They're adding certain things. So nothing is ever truly 100% accurate in the full picture, right? I think that if it was just a documentary with videos, with tapes, that it would have a popularity, with those people that are into that type of stuff, the serial killer fanatics, but it wouldn't have the reach that it's having right now.
Yeah.
Ryan Murphy is an incredibly popular creator. Evan Peters is like a really popular, young actor. So it's bringing an audience to this genre or this subject matter that probably doesn't spend a lot of time looking into serial killers. And I think that's why people are having such a strong reaction to this movie or this series, because they're not used to talking about serial killers. They're not used to seeing what they do, because they just watch pop culture. They're not the hardcore people that watch and listen to serial killers, read the books and all of that stuff. So that's the thing that's kind of dangerous, I think, is casting really popular actors, depicting a real life event, but fictionalizing it and making it a Hollywood creation, and then the audience takes stepping back from it and accepting it as reality and fact.
Yeah.
But a lot of things have been changed, and they hint at to maybe what Jeffrey Dahmer was motivated by, or maybe that he had second thoughts about killing someone. And I'm sure they maybe have done research with his interviews, but we don't know if that's accurate. Was he trying to play up on the sympathies of people interviewing him? And are you making someone sympathetic that is not deserving of any sympathy? So it's very interesting, the whole topic. Maybe one day we can get a psychiatrist or some expert in that field that would say, why as human beings are we interested in this type of horrific stuff? Like, what what is entertaining for us, or what titillates us about these things. Is it like a horror movie, like your heart gets racing, so that's fun, it's the adrenaline, or do we have a really sick fascination with these sick individuals? And so that's definitely a topic that I think would be interesting, even though it's not our genre of podcast, but it is an interesting one to see why people are so drawn to this type of subject matter.
Yeah, definitely. What my last final thoughts on that are Evan Peters as an actor. I hope that this doesn't like mess him up at all, because I think like back to Heath Ledger when he played the Joker, and that was a fictional character, and how that really being inside the mind of that sort of criminally insane person or character really messed him up, right? Which led to ultimately to his final act, I guess you'll say. And so I'm hoping that Evan Peters is able to compartmentalize that a little bit more, so it doesn't affect him as much. And
I'm curious about that, because one, I don't know if it did impact Heath that way, or if he was already battling personal demons to begin with. Two, I am of the thought that actors are playing pretend and they're very good at it. And you can play pretend and not be psychologically
most of them. Yeah.
I know that there are some individuals that are very method. They really get into the psychology of their character, and they act like that person 24 hours a day. I think that's a bit extreme. If I were to be cast in something, I think that I would go the route of like, I'm playing pretend versus like, don't call me by my real name kind of a thing. I think that, I don't know. I think that it's a bit of actors kind of overplaying the importance of their talent or gifts. Like, oh, I get so involved in this character that it really impacts the way I view things. And no, like I think you're just playing pretend. Like you can just like little kids play pretend, like cops and robbers, and they don't, it doesn't impact them psychologically. I don't know. I'm not an actor. I'm not like, a method actor. I don't know if that's valid. I think there's a slight bit of like BS when it comes to people that are method actors. Like, do whatever you got to do, but I don't know. It's just
I hear you.
People that like Joaquin Phoenix. Lady Gaga is very method. She, when she was filming House of Gucci, she spoke an accent. She didn't refer to her by name. People had to refer to her by her character's name. She was very aggressive. She was, almost crazy. And I can respect it, but there are also a lot of actors that are very, well regarded and respected that aren't method, that are like, yep, when the camera's rolling, I pretend to be someone else. Stops, I go home and play with my kids. So who's to say like which is better? But I think maybe I just think that my hope is that Evan Peters is just a good actor. He plays pretend really well, and he knows that when he's eating, a fictional piece of human, he's not really eating it. So hopefully that doesn't impact him psychologically. So I don't know. Like, that'd be cool if maybe Evan can come on our show, on our podcast, and talk about that. And see if he's can leave it at work, leave that character and go on with his life. But I know a lot of people have expressed that sentiment, that they're concerned about his psychological being. But I don't know. Here's another example of something that really irks me. Actually, there are a lot of male actors. It tends to be male actors for some reason, that they'll play a character in the military or like, let's say in law enforcement, then all of a sudden they have that personality outside. So what's the Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy?
Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt's a good example. He like makes a couple of military movies, and all of a sudden he's G.I. Joe. And it's like, you know that you didn't actually serve in the military, right? You played pretend. And another one is Magnum Pi, that actor, Tom Selleck. He plays a cop in Blue Bloods, I think. And now he's like super serious. Like you would think that he's an actual cop, that he's, been in law enforcement his whole life. And it's like, dude, you are in Hollywood. You're like 10, you're an actor. But for some reason, like that, they adopt that personality and they become very popular with like conservative politicians, and they become a part of that whole, vibe. Another one is John Wayne. Like, dude, you weren't a real cowboy.
Right.
You were an actor playing pretend. Like, get over yourself. So Sam Elliott has done that. Like, too, was recently complaining about someone not being a real cowboy. And I'm like, you're not a real cowboy. What are you talking about? You're an actor. You live in Malibu. Like, anyway.
Well, I'll leave it with this. I'm so glad that Ryan Murphy decided not to make it a cooking show.
Right.
So.
He had so many dad jokes, for this.
That's what we're here for, Gen X,
Bringing in the good dad jokes to every topic. But.
Well, while you're quenching your palate on Dahmer, I was enjoying Andor, the new Star Wars story on Disney Plus, and I will get you to watch it one of these days.
All right.
It is a fantastic movie. I spoke a little bit about it last episode, and I was excited for it to come out. Well, it finally did. They released the first 3 episodes of it on Disney Plus. And it's just a well-written character story. So even if you take away the whole Star Wars aspect of it, which really you don't really get that much of, other than it's set in that universe, you don't really get all stormtroopers and Star. There's a little bit, but not much.
Yeah.
But it's just a great, gritty. Diego Luna plays the role perfectly. The one though that stole the show for me was the female character who played, I think her name was Bex, and that is Adria Aronja. And she steals every scene she's in. She was just wonderful to watch. So go watch it for that, and for the score, the musical score that accompanies the show throughout. They use the use of like a drum set, like a rock and roll drum set in the middle to help build the suspense and the tension. And it just works perfectly with it. So go watch it. I implore you to just give it a shot. Just try it.
I'm looking at the cast, and the fact that they have Adria and Diego Luna definitely makes me want to see it. Stellan Skarsgård is actually another of one of my favorite actors. Mm-hmm. So I will try to watch it.
Yes.
I'm not making any promises because I have started watching a really trashy reality show that I haven't seen yet. So I'm probably going to be watching that for the next couple nights. But I'm glad that we finally have Latinos in space.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Speaking about Latinos in space, drama related to Latinos, Cardi B is the last couple of days has been in the shitstorm on Twitter. She's been feuding with someone. I don't know who this other person is, but the good news to come out of it is that she did a collab with a female rapper by the name of, I think her name is Glorilla. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I've never heard of her before. And they have a song called Tomorrow 2, which is a really, really dope song. The other female rapper on it has a really interesting voice. It's very deep. So you almost, at first listen, I thought it was actually a male rapper. It's very kind of, I wouldn't say hardcore, but like it's not pop rap. And Cardi definitely comes for her haters on her little cameo that she does, and it's a really good song. I really like it. I'm a fan of Cardi B. Like, she has a lot of haters, and I don't know why. But it's a really great song. Like, I think they're already up to like 8 million views within 2 days on YouTube for their video.
Wow.
It's really entertaining. Cardi B is Afro-Latina. I think she is half Dominican. So I definitely give her props for breaking records, being a successful rap female artist in that genre is difficult. We all know that it's a difficult industry to maintain and stay on the top. So props to her for having another hit song. I think that just in the next few days, I think it's going to debut in Billboard within like the top 10. So it's going to be on the radio for sure.
Yeah. And Cardi B, I mean, I know that who she is, even though I'm not a fan of the music or her style, but she's made it so that even if you don't know her music, you know who she is, which is cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, she's very petty, which I admire because it speaks to my own nature. She goes for the jugular. I think that within this argument with this other person that I don't know, this other woman, this person brought up Cardi B's sister, and she's like, I told, like, don't come for my sister. She's like, go dig your dead mom out of her grave. So I'm like, wow, like that's a good comeback. Like that's a comeback that like I would, because when you're beefing with someone or you're fighting with someone, you have to go for the jugular. Like there's no pulling punches. Anyone out there that's wants to fight with someone, there's no playing fair. It is what it is. It's like a street fight. So if you wanna, what's the French with the swords?
The fencing with the foil and an épée.
Yeah, if you want to be fencing, go fence. But otherwise, there are no rules. So I love her for that. I love that she like no holds barred. She'll say it like it is, like whatever she thinks, it comes out. She's very protective of her family and of her partner Offset. So I love her. I'm a fan of hers. I definitely rock with all her music too. So that's what I'm listening to right at this moment, which kind of falls in line with our Hispanic Heritage Month. I think that sometimes with like Afro Latinos, they don't get a spotlight put on them as far as Latino because in America, if like it's like you're black or you're not, or like you're white or you're black, like and them having a background within a Latin American country, but presenting as black, sometimes it gets like lost in the mix.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad that she represents her roots and her background in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you brought up the music, Latino music, because I have been listening to a lot recently, and mainly to more my style, which is like the rock en español. So a lot of Maná, Gaifanes, Soda Stereo, La Ley, which is a cool Chilean band. And I right before we came on to this episode, excuse me, I was browsing Netflix, and they actually have a documentary on there called Break It All, the history of rock in Latin America.
Oh, nice.
And I haven't seen it yet because I just barely saw it. It's like a limited series on there. So I'm going to go watch that after we're done here, because it's really, when I saw it spoke to all the bands that I just mentioned. And it's like, oh, cool. I should watch this. How come I didn't know about this? Yeah. So that's from like the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, for when the rock en español explosion really happened. Yeah. And I've more recently, for more modern music, I guess you could say, I've been listening to some Bad Bunny, Karol G, J Balvin. I didn't really know much about them, so it was interesting. I really like I really prefer J Balvin over Bad Bunny. I don't know if they're rivals, but I really liked his music and the beats behind his vocals a lot more. And that's just my preference. I mean, I was also listening to Camila Cabello and like her song Havana, which was hugely popular a few years ago. And she's a Cuban born, and it's really cool. I really enjoy the beats of that. So I might not know everything that they're saying because my Spanish is kind of iffy, but the music really just spoke to me. And if the music itself can get to me, then the vocals and the lyrics I will learn. But if the music was what I hear first.
Yeah. One of my go-to, if you want to call it like Latino bands, even though I wouldn't necessarily put them in that category, but they are who they are, is a band called Girl in a Coma. They're a trio. They're from Texas. They don't like putting a label as like a lesbian or Latino or female led, like they're just a band, which I respect, but they are Latina. So
Tough.
I've actually seen them play in concert here in San Diego at the Casbah. They really impressed me. Their lead singer, Nina Diaz, is like really cool. Front woman. They sing in Spanish. I think occasionally they do sing in Spanish. They were signed to Joan Jett's label. I think they were one of the first bands to sign to her label. I think they might not be on it anymore, but they have released an album with her. And they're just like a cool rock band, like a cool like punk rock band. Lyrics are really cool, like nothing like super sophisticated when it comes to like their musicality, but it's just like a cool garage rock band.
Nice.
And it's fun to listen to. I think they kind of speak to that intersection of like Latinidad and American culture, and like how us who are born in America and have American culture, but still have those influences of like our grandparents and our great grandparents. And so it's never going to be gone because we hear it. It's like in our world growing up, it's impossible to escape. But they're very much like that. And one of their influences, they say, is Selena. And Selena was very much that too. Like grew up in America, in Texas, but was influenced, and could hear, but didn't speak Spanish. I don't think Nina Diaz speaks fluent Spanish as well. So, I relate to that, being a person who does not speak fluently in Spanish. And they're just like a really cool band. I don't know. I definitely recommend people checking them out. Other bands that I really love that are actually sing in Spanish would be Los Fabulosos Cadillacs from Argentina. They're probably one of the first bands I saw live. Really good live band, amazing live band, actually. And I really love Bad Bunny right now. He just played in San Diego a few weeks ago and sold out. And everyone loves him, like maybe with the exception of you.
No, I don't not dislike him. I just prefer the other one.
Yeah. And so he's definitely someone that I listen to a lot when I'm listening to music at night before I go to bed. He has a really cool sound. I appreciate his sound and like his dedication to like just pumping music out. Like he's very prolific in creating new music. And so yeah, those are the people that I've been listening to lately.
One you tweeted about that you didn't mention right now was the Mars Volta. And they are quite the experience sonically. There's just the lead singer's voice and its range, and it's just quite amazing. And it's one that I had forgotten about till you mentioned it, and they are terrific. They really are.
Yeah, they're the kind of music that like I don't think I'm being correct when I say that they're like a psychedelic band, but they're kind of the kind of music that I like to put on and like experience, if that makes sense. Like not have like anything else distracting me. Whereas like other artists I can put on and like do work or watch, play with my dog or whatever. But Mars Volta is a type of band that like I want to be in like complete darkness and like have my headphones on and like experience the music. That's the kind of sound that they have, that it's just very layered. It's very sophisticated. It does have like that hard rock influence. It also has a lot of Latin rhythms that they put in there as well, like salsa. And it's just very interesting. It's multi-layered music, and it's just fun to listen to it, to like listen from beginning to end and like take that journey.
That's true.
They're actually the two members of the Mars Volta were in a punk band called At the Drive-In. If you ever listened,
I've heard of them.
And so that was like and I want to say that they're working on new music right now. I think they were working with Kanye West of all people, and they are making new music, I think. So hopefully something new coming out from them, hopefully really soon.
Pretty cool. So one last person that when I was doing research for this episode for Latino excellence, especially when music, I stumbled across, or happened across, a gentleman by the name of, his performing name is Karim Leon. Now he's a modern take on like a norteño music. He's from Hermosillo, Mexico, and his song that really stood out to me was released, I think, just like last week. It's called Si es cierto que te vas, and it is phenomenal. The gentleman's voice is very powerful. He has this powerful tenor voice. I think like almost sound like remember the three tenors like Pavarotti and them like that. So it's very strong, very powerful. Go listen to it and just don't be distracted by anything else and just listen to it. You might not, like me, might not know all the lyrics, what they mean, but the meaning and the power and the emotion behind it, it's really telling. So it's really good. I went and listened to some of his discography. Discography, and it is really good. So I highly recommend him. He is someone I think that's going to make a bigger stamp on the world, and not just because of his regional Mexican music, which is what he likes, but I think he's going to explode beyond that. So check him out. And yeah, that's all I got for Latino excellence in music. I'm sure there's a lot more. So if any of you out there still have recommendations for us of who we should listen to or who we should, happen upon, please leave a comment for us. Let us know. We'll be happy to check them out. I love experiencing new music. It's one of my things that I love to do every night before I go to bed. I lie with my AirPods on and just listen to music for probably a good hour, just exploring all genres. So send over your recommendations. I'll be happy to listen to them. And yeah, so that's all I got.
Yeah. And if you are a musician or in a band, hit us up. We would love to be able to promote your music, talk about your point of view.
Talk with you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so hit us up if you're a musician. I would love, I know both of us would actually love to get to know you as an artist and be able to share your work with our audience as well. So definitely hit us up. I'm going to be checking out this recommendation by you, Danny, because Hermosillo, Sonora is like where my people are from. So I definitely have to check them out. My mom's side of my family is from Sonora.
Right. Okay.
I'll have to check it out. So I'm going to go do that now. Maybe watch some more trash reality TV for the night. And then I will check out Andor.
At the end of the day, when your mind is, full of garbage, go for it. Well, sounds like a plan. Thank you, everyone, for stopping by this week, for checking us out. If this is your first time, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow along our journey through pop culture, especially as we get into the spooky season. That's my favorite time of year. So when we entered into the fall, I was like, all right, get to be Halloween, and all the things that come along with it. So I'm very excited for that and look forward for our future episodes where we get to maybe talk with some creators who create comic books in that genre. So I'm looking forward to that. So stay tuned, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Stay safe.